Hello, and thank you for joining us on the last edition of Journalist Hangout this week. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo. It is now just a matter of hours before Nigerians go to the polls to elect another president and a new set of federal lawmakers. The die is cast. Today on the program, federal government shuts borders while police restrict vehicular movement as President Buhari assures foreigners, election observers of their safety. Justice Minister writes INEC to obey High Court order on Zamfara APC, seeks postponement of elections in that state, and then later on the program, Justice Onnoghen appears at the CCT for trial, pleads not guilty to 6-count charge of non-assets declaration. I'll be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otitoju and Shola Ojewusi. Journalist Hangout starts now. Thank you for joining us. From years to months and weeks to days, the date for the conduct of Nigeria's general election has trickled down to a few hours. With hours to Saturday's presidential and National Assembly polls, the federal government has ordered the closure of all land borders effective from 12 midnight Friday to Sunday. Minister of the Interior Abdulrahman Dambazo, who announced closure, said it is to restrict movement across notoriously porous borders while the elections last. In another move, the Acting Inspector General of Police, Muhammad Adamu, ordered the restriction of vehicular movement from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday. This, according to the police boss, will allow for effective policing of the electoral process. Also, President Buhari, in a broadcast to the country, reassured foreigners and election observers of their safety. This should be soothing to troubled minds. Gentlemen, as I bid you welcome, I am blessed among men this evening on Journalist Hangout. Babajide Kolade Otitoju, you're welcome. And Shola Ojewusi, you're welcome.
It's a pleasure.
Now, because of the seeming cases of violence at different campaigns, rallies across the states of the Federation, it's been a thing of worry for observers and stakeholders of this election. But of course, the body language of security operatives, INEC meeting with election observers, should fears be laid to rest ahead of tomorrow. Babajide, I'm starting with you.
Well, our electoral history is replete with cases of violence, so much that you can actually write the history of Nigerian elections in blood. For that reason, nobody, no government that is really worth its name would want to take the issue of security lightly. I hope that we can get there one day, because I think that it diminishes us as a people to lock up everywhere, close banks, close this, close that, because we are doing elections. Elections shouldn't always even be conducted during the weekends. In some countries of the world, elections are conducted on weekdays. Everything goes on smoothly. The schools open, banks open, you know. But in our own case, we shut down our nation because we want to do an election. And it's been like this for so long. It shouldn't be the case. People should be free to move around, but we don't trust ourselves. We think that if we allow vehicular movement, thugs will be shipped in from some parts of the country to another, and violence would be the order of the day. That's why we have these measures being taken. You see police deploying thousands and thousands. What we are even hearing about this is particularly funny. About you have like 4 police commissioners posted to a single state.
State alone.
And each senatorial zone with a police police commissioner. Where would the average policeman in that state take his order from? Those police commissioners that you are sending to the states, who will be in charge?
Presiding.
You know, who would they won't directly have troops. They won't directly have policemen. under them. Are you saying that, okay, all policemen mandated to protect polling centers will report to the police commissioner posted to that place? So I don't know how we intend to do. We increasingly militarize our elections, and it makes us look really, really immature in the Committee of Nations, because we see smaller countries organize free, fair, and credible elections. Look at Botswana and the rest of them. Countries that in the past, Nigeria even played a part in making them who they are. Today, those countries have left us behind. They do elections. Nobody will snatch ballot boxes. Those elections will be free and fair, and everyone will go home and accept the outcome. But what do we have in our country? As we speak now, both parties are accusing one another of trying to, both major parties are accusing one another of trying to rig. Nobody trusts anyone. So I guess for a few more cycles of election, we'll live with the militarization of our elections, unless things change drastically.
And we hope that things do change. Babajide made a very strong point about whether mercenaries have been imported, from outside. That brings me to the next question. Shutting borders, is the fear of violence from within, majorly from within, or from outside the country?
Well, it's both ways. You have to consider the fact that we have been battling with these border issues for quite some time. The idea of insurgents coming from neighboring countries and all those things. You have to note, I think the world is watching us. Whatever happens tomorrow or around the period of the election will either show us as a very serious nation or another nation that's on the brink of collapse. So the idea of having security beefed up around I think it's not out of place, considering the antecedents, especially the border areas. Because, the insurgency, one of some of the issues we've discussed here, But the point is actually the deployment of security agents to those borders. Is it actually enough to be able to stop anything that will happen? Because every time we keep talking of people coming from Chad, from Niger and all those things, Zamfara, people, they call them whatever they name, all those people creating problems, militants or whatever. So we have a very strong issue on our hands. And I hope there is enough coordination among the security agencies to be able to man those areas. There is so much, we have a lot of porous, channels through which something bad can happen. Remember, there is the nagging fear based on something that happened recently about the possibility of maybe the neighboring countries being brought or being involved in this election. Besides the idea of bringing militants or people who can create problem, armed people, there is also the fear of the elections being maybe interrupted by maybe people who want to maybe create some problems from other neighboring countries, or they want to be part of the election, maybe by default. So there is a lot of reasons for us to be very careful about the way we handle that part. But my only fear at this time is, do we really have enough to be able to, with all what we know about our borders, when you're talking of West Africa, Nigeria's borders are perhaps the most porous. So what is really going to happen? We are talking of sending 4 commissioners of police to a particular state. Can't those people be channeled towards such areas? It's like there is a confusion. The chain of command there is a kind of problem with that now. So what will happen when that confusion comes? We are placing our priorities right or wrong? Do we really need to, field states with such mighty presence of commissioners when we have borders across the land that need serious money? So those are some of the issues we really have to look for. But we are just a few hours away. I don't know. So that's why I said the world is watching. There is a kind of clear and present danger that the security agencies must be able to tackle. Otherwise, we're going to have another problem. One thing is for us to go to the polls. And there's this other issue that was raised about maybe restricting movement. I was going to ask a question because I personally may be a victim tomorrow. Why? I live around the airport road, but because of the exigencies of registration, at the time I registered, I had to register in Ikeja. Now, do I, as a voter, because of the restriction of movement, do I have the opportunity to take my PVC to that place away from where I live and then be able to vote? So you have to define what you mean by restriction. To what extent are you restricting people? A legitimate voter who has to move from one section of the city to the other, will he be able to exercise his right? So these are issues. I think we still have time for people to make some announcements or to clarify specific issues that have been raised regarding this election. But I hope we get it right.
Now, gentlemen, I hope the same air of uncertainty doesn't hang over the safety of foreigners and observers. President Buhari has assured of observers of their safety. Then does this also douse the tension that had arisen when his campaign organization expressed reservations about the comments of the U.S. ambassador, about the coming elections? Babajide.
I think that the president said that because there is some concern about the statement credited to the little man who is the governor of Kaduna State, when he said that some people could return in body bags, this and that, if they interfered in Nigerian matters. Well, nobody has the right to brand mere monitoring elections in our country as interfering in Nigerian matters. It's always been like that. If elections are not monitored, it is the standard practice across the world for elections to be monitored. People like Abdulsalami, Abubakar, General Abdulsalam, people like Obasanjo and Yauku, they've gone to monitor elections in other countries.
Even but let's be careful. INEC has said there's a difference between observers and monitors.
What is the difference? Did they define the difference?
They said observers are to observe the situation. Yes. Meanwhile, monitors, look at the process. They follow the process from one place to another as party agents would do.
We are also in the history of elections, not just Nigeria, where have we ever been told that there's a difference between election monitors and observers?
Well, this situation has arisen.
It's just semantics.
We have a way of playing with language.
Monitors do not go into the polling centers to say, okay, let us see how who printed what. They don't go into where the collation centers to say, let us see how these things are being collated. It is the party agents who do that. It is the party agents who do that. There's no difference between election monitors and observers. There's no difference. Check it. Because you see, when people say certain things, we don't even bother to check. Go and check election in Cambodia, election in this, election in that, and on you just Google. You see what they are called. You see what monitors are called. It's just a matter of semantics. Some could call them observer, some could call them election monitor. This is the way it is.
What if an observer looks closely at the process but does not intervene in the process?
They do not. Don't give him unnecessary. Go give the statement he made unnecessary traction. What is the difference between election monitor and election observers? We've always called them observers. Some people call them monitors. They monitor the situation. They monitor how the election is going in the country. It doesn't mean that they will walk into INEC offices or say, okay, where is the INEC server? I want to know or see what they put there. No. Because some people are just unnecessarily jittery over our election, and they are creating tension without knowing it. When you start talking like this, you are giving some people the feeling that you want to rig the election. I'm telling you, this is how people will think. So when our leaders, you put microphone in their front and they start talking, they do not know that there has to be a limit. They will have said certain things, later on they will regret it, they will say they were misquoted. You see a man who said something that was recorded by television crews coming to say he was misquoted. After he apparently realized that he goofed. So there's no point to create a controversy that is needless. There is no difference between election monitors and election observers. It's the same people, the same way when they come from the EU or even from the UK, we know that they are election monitors. Some people will call them observers. It is up to you to call them what you want to call them. It's the same job that they do. The job of monitoring our election. Their presence alone gives us the feeling that, yes, they are interested in the fidelity of our elections. So even you, as the electoral umpire, you know that you must demonstrate even-handedness because you know that someone is watching. So whether you call the person watching an observer or a monitor, it's down to you. But all my life, I've been monitoring elections since 79. I've been going to polling centers since 79. Go there, go with, I was not entitled to vote. I was too young to vote. But at least I will go with people, my mother and other people who are interested in the political process. I will see them. That is what they are called. It can't be when we now have Professor Mahmoud Yakubu now that their name will change. No, or what they do will change. This is what they are called.
So Shola, do you agree with Babajide that when you begin to speak like this, distinguishing between synonyms,
people are getting
you give the impression you want to rig the election?
Yes, and it's not in the interest, even those of, the interest of the people trying to do that. Like I said earlier, El-Rufai himself was in Ghana as an observer or monitor, whatever. He was there, nobody harassed, nobody told him not to, Let me tell you this. Today, some of the major news on CNN was the Nigerian election. Africa's largest, the most populous nation in Africa. The attention of the world is very, very strong.
Yes.
We need a credible election. We have to follow the normal international standard procedures. We don't need to start putting even the lives of observers in danger. Whatever is any statement made by a leader, we should note that there is the danger of people misconstruing what to say about people.
Yes.
People going to do their normal, they are our friends. They are friends. They should be presented as friends of Nigeria because they want to make sure that the process is genuine and it is free and it is fair. That is what will help whoever is in, whether from the opposition or whatever, the ruling party. So nobody should endanger the life of anybody with the kind of statements we make. Yes, you may be apprehensive, but then, you have to know that the future of the country is more important. And these people are there. They are not even umpires. They are not INEC. It's just for them to watch. Is it okay? Has it been done? From what we have seen, is it right? Then unless you have some, hidden agenda. And if you don't have that, let it be free. Don't endanger anybody, because those who don't really understand what this really means may just see the observers as enemies.
Yes,
and they start
as people who have ulterior motives.
Yes, don't endanger anybody's life.
Part of improving our electoral processes is looking at the job of the TMGs of this world. Because at the end of every election, they will mention those things that we need to get right. And if the process, you see it even on election day, they interview those observers, and they will say, see, that where we monitored the election, everything was fine. Everything was fine.
Yeah.
So if the election went well, they will say it. Yes. Where we need to improve, they will say it.
Absolutely.
At the end, there will be a communique. And that communique will show where we really need to get it right. Yes. That is how we can grow as a democratic nation. That's how we can perfect our electoral process. Why should a country like Ghana, India, the biggest democracy in the world, if they do an election today, after a few hours, you know who has won the election. And there's nothing like rigging that, this election was rigged. No. We should strive to get to that point. And I think the foundation has been laid. INEC has graduated from an agency that was seen as only capable of conducting conclusive elections to an agency that can actually conduct elections that we'll be proud of. And we will see clearly that even the level of litigation arising from post-election litigation has dropped. Because when the candidates can see that the process was free and fair, they don't have to go to court and waste money on lawyers. Yes. So it has gone down. From 20, if you look at the statistics, from 2003 down to now, there has been a progressive decline in the number of cases arising from the conduct of elections, you know? So, and kudos must go to INEC because they are trying their best to make things happen. But we know that they are not where they ought to be yet. Yeah. They must cut out the controversy about the observer and monitors, focus on the substance, do your best to improve our electoral process, and everyone will accord to Professor Mahmoud Yakubu the pride of place that he deserves to be. Because I've said it to him publicly on this program, that he has a choice to either give himself immortality or destroy himself. The choice that he has is clear. Conduct an election that Nigerians will be proud of. And after your duty, across the world, you will be seen as a reference point. Today, there is nowhere that Jega goes. There is nowhere that he goes that he is not accorded the respect that the job that he did in 2015 and 2011 deserves. Everywhere, his colleagues across the world, they show him that respect. Mahmoud Yakubu has a choice. If it is the kind of image that Morisiwu has, that he too wants to adopt or even appropriate, fine. He has a choice.
I'm sure he has gotten the message.
If he does not conduct a free and fair election, honestly, Nigerians will be, the history will be very harsh on him. And I think as a historian, a first-class historian, he knows what it is to be judged harshly by history. It's true.
And gentlemen, the eyes of the world are on us taking, but the morning also shows the day. The deployment, or the movement rather, of sensitive material from the CBN to locations where they'll be used. Are those materials secure enough? Are they being closely guarded by security operatives?
Well, we've been having instances of, I mean, like I just had in Kano, there are some PVCs or whatever were intercepted by the police. I just hope those are just as isolated situations.
Ballot papers.
Ballot papers.
But they've clarified that they are specimen and they were not thumb-printed, as was reported earlier.
I don't think there is so much to be afraid of. So we just hope for the best tomorrow. That's the best.
All right, you're watching Journalist Hangout. Still to come, Justice Minister writes INEC to obey High Court order on Zamfara APC, seeks postponement of elections in the state. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Journalist Hangout on TVC. The wave of surprises, twists and legal battles trailing the exclusion of candidates from Zamfara State chapter of the All Progressives Congress APC continues. Another interesting twist is playing out following another court ruling. The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami has written to INEC to comply with the judgment of the Court of Appeal by admitting the results of Zamfara APC primaries. The Justice Minister also called on the electoral body to shift the date of the polls, apparently to accommodate the changes occasioned by the Zamfara impasse. Gentlemen, the first argument or criticism that this throws up is the propriety, which is being talked about by members of the bar, the propriety of Attorney General of the Federation writing INEC, asking INEC to comply with the court order. Babajide.
Yes, I actually didn't foresee that it would get to this point, but as the chief law officer of our country, the Attorney General has the right to direct an agency of government to obey a court order. I guess it was in the exercise of that right that he has done what he has done. If we go back to how this whole thing
started,
they had primaries in Zamfara. APC leaders, out of selfishness, were fighting themselves over whose faction or whose group will produce the candidates. Now we got to the point that the monitors that they sent from Abuja, the monitors, or should I call them observers?
whatever you like.
The monitors that they sent from Abuja refused to actually monitor the primaries. All they wanted to do was just send a report that, look, primaries did not hold, because some people had made up their mind that it will be one candidate with the name Dauda that should be the candidate of the party. Now, INEC office in Gusau monitored the primaries and said, contrary to the notion that primaries were not held, primaries were held.
Actually held. We
monitored the primaries, and these are the winners. You know, so at that point I was worried. I said, so an INEC state chapter can actually disagree with the national. So that was what happened. And ultimately, some people went to court, and the court, Justice Shinkafi's court in Gusau, now gave an order that INEC should include the APC candidates from Zamfara on the ballot, and that the APC national headquarters should accept the list, because by tradition it is the national headquarters that deals directly with INEC. They are the one who present. So there was an order that they should give the list, take the list and give to INEC. But on the day that judgment was made, there was another
Abuja.
There was a counter judgment from the Federal High Court in Abuja. So INEC said, well, we are in a bind. We will not obey these judgments. But now, there was an aggrieved party went to court over the judgment of the Gusau High Court. But at the point when they were to begin to hear the matter, the aggrieved party said it was withdrawing. And the appeal court judge said, well, the thing to do is to dismiss your prayers. Because at this stage, when appearance has been entered, you cannot say you are withdrawing, or you are withdrawing the matter. So it has to be dismissed. So what they sought before the court, the appeal court dismissed. Now the argument of the Attorney General is that the dismissal of that appeal,
the implication of it is
that it has now, the judgment of the High Court has now been validated, because there's no longer any objection to it. So that is the argument of the Attorney General, that the only objection to it has now, in the form of the appeal court matter, has been dismissed. So it means that this is the only matter known for now on
the Zamfara APC primary.
Yes, and that the INEC should go ahead and
include
and implement the judgment of that lower court in Zamfara. And it is saying, look, the Attorney General is saying it's risky to not do that, because in the past we've had elections nullified on the basis of exclusion. We've had elections nullified in this country because some parties were excluded, or even particular candidates. They will go to court and say, look, my rights were taken away. They didn't put my name on the ballot. Therefore, the election we find elections nullified on the basis of that. So he's warning that instead of wasting public funds on a futile effort, the thing to do
It's postponed.
is to obey the order of the Gusau High Court and put these guys on the ballot. We know that it has come too close to the election, and he's saying that by Article 38 of the Electoral Act, that INEC can postpone the election. When there are issues about nomination, if you need more time and all that, you can actually postpone. So he suggested to them that they can postpone, do the election.
But even if INEC were to implement the judgment of the Zamfara High Court,
yes,
the controversy goes back to who now is the candidate that APC will present for the Zamfara election.
APC is clear about who the candidate is. And the candidate is the former finance commissioner in the states, Koguna Gusau. That is the candidate. And the party, unlike the division that we had, when even Governor Yari said he was going to kill Oshomole, that he was ready to be taken to the graveyard over Oshomole's matter. They have made up. They have made up. And Oshomole now has a copy of not just the judgment, but the list of candidates that the court said they should present to INEC. So the party is no longer divided on this matter. Remember, the president alluded to that he was sure that the party, the contending groups will make up. He said that during the rally a few days back. He said he was sure that they will achieve peace. So Oshomole and Governor Yari and other people, they are the same, because this is the best chance that they have. If they bungle this opportunity, it's gone. They won't present candidates. So the party knows that it has to back this judicial battle with INEC. It has to join the Zamfara people to tackle INEC judicially, and that's what they are doing. So Oshomole is on the same page with them. There's no ambiguity over who will be the candidate, and that candidate is not Marafa.
But you know what? I agree with Jide.
I want to pick up on his point.
Yes.
Jide does not, he sees the move by the Attorney General as in line, according to his designation of office. But then again, the opposition says
that's where
he has
going
an interest.
The Attorney General has interpreted it based on his understanding of the law.
Okay.
But there are also legal juggernauts who have come up to say, no, you have no right in coming there. Apart from the legal aspect, they're also looking at the moral aspect, that you are like a participant. Then you cannot be the umpire in this kind of situation.
He has not called himself an umpire.
Now, the issue now is, we have somebody like even Falana, saying that the approach of the AG is not the best. We have somebody like Michael
Lawyers never agree on anything.
Look, that's the point. That's another point.
Agree on anything. You see, when they talk, when you see lawyers arguing amongst one another, it is interest, self-interest. Look, I've seen situations in which a matter that is so clear-cut, you see lawyers speaking big grammar, say all kinds of things. They know that in their hearts, they know they are wrong, but they will continue to push. They will say heavens will fall if this happens. Forget lawyers.
Let's forget lawyers.
Let's hear his point.
INEC. But they've been put on the spot. They are like in the middle and being pulled from both sides. And now, in that kind of situation, to be seen as being fair, what would you have expected INEC to do? But to say, okay, I'm going to base everything on the status quo ante. No. Anything that comes down, because now,
let me tell you,
INEC is in a dilemma when two courts of coordinate jurisdiction.
INEC has no power to be interpreting the law or deciding, which of these judgments will I accept. If INEC has issues,
I'm not a lawyer. Anyway.
If INEC has issues, I'm not a lawyer too. If INEC has issues, it can approach the courts to say, okay, look, we are in this kind of situation. What should we do? It is not for it to be cherry picking what decisions of courts to obey. No. But now, that is the thing. It can approach the courts.
The election is under even 12 hours, or 24 hours. what will happen now that we have reached this stage? And there seems not to be a kind of common ground from
Attorney
both
General
sides.
says the presidential election should not be postponed, but the National Assembly elections on the
But
others
we
can
have
be
not had
postponed.
any reaction from
No,
INEC.
as at this
INEC
morning,
says it's studying
they
the
have
letter.
not. As at this
but
morning, they have
now-
not responded.
So within the time, what? I
Let
think
me
it's
tell
dicey.
you, as long as there is that judgment, you know, this matter reminds me of what happened between the PDP and Buruji Kashamu. If there is if someone has a judgment, Buruji Kashamu may not be as literate as the rest of us, but he knows how to really exploit a judicial breakthrough.
The judiciary.
A judicial breakthrough. Now, there was a court matter that ended in his favor. And the PDP guys were wasting time. They didn't go to vacate that order of the court. And it's that order of the court that gave him control of the PDP structures in his state. So I'm telling you that as long as this judgment is there, anybody, if you do an election, they will go to court and they will do that election again. We've seen that happen in our country. So it's better to do the right thing. If they need more time, give them that time, organize their own, more or less like a by-election, organize another one for them. Otherwise, as long as this judgment, you've not vacated it, the appeal court has even thrown that, dismissed the only opposition to the objection.
One thing
That means those guys that the judgment favors, they will think that if INEC does not let them take part in this election, they will go to court. And I can predict what the outcome will be.
Let me now ask
And
this.
the Attorney General has warned that an exclusion could be notified based on
those who are
exclusion.
already anticipating the election, I mean that they're going to do the election without the opposition. What if they also come up tomorrow and say, by law, they've been given an opportunity and they didn't have the opportunity, they're also going to...
No, they've not lost any opportunity. It's INEC's right to determine when to do an election. If this one, because it's the same INEC that said that, look, we will only put them on the ballot if the law court directs us to so do. Now there's a court that has dismissed the application, the objection to that judgment. It means that that judgment has been validated. Technically, that's what it means. That judgment has been... Even without the courts expressly saying you must put them on the ballot. Because
but then I hope
but INEC still has...
that the judiciary will not exploit the seeming vagueness of that court judgment to yet again rule differently.
Is the Supreme Court now an appeal? This one already has been decided on appeal. So the Supreme Court that is left to adjudicate on this matter, if anyone feels like appealing. But the same person who brought the appeal withdrew it. So who will now go to Supreme Court at this stage? That's the thing. This matter is simple. INEC should just go ahead, fix a separate date for the National Assembly and other elections in Zamfara, and they will do it. It happened in Rivers now, when they canceled those elections due to violence and rigging.
We wait to see what INEC will do. We are just a few hours away. Do they really have enough time to be able to...
There's no time. No, they don't have to do it now.
We even have weeks to the governorship.
We've seen people, I think even in
elections.
Kogi, we've seen an individual, because they left him out. He went to court and the election was nullified. They had to conduct a fresh election. That's the warning that the Attorney General is giving. We may, you can say, the Attorney General belongs to the APC. Therefore, every action that he takes, it must be because he wants to favor his party. No. It can be PDP that will be the victim next time. It can be SDP, it can be any party. So every time we try to dismiss people's attempts to do what is right, we must remember that we could actually become a victim one day.
All right, gentlemen, we have time. Let's see what will happen. Very quickly, the big masquerade has finally appeared in public. After a bench warrant for his arrest was issued by the Code of Conduct Tribunal, The suspended Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onnoghen, appeared before the CCT in Abuja for his trial for alleged false assets declaration. At the resumed hearing of the case, Justice Onnoghen pleaded not guilty to a 6-count charge of non-assets declaration and operation of foreign accounts. Chairman of the CCT, Danladi Umar, also granted the embattled Onnoghen bail on self-recognition, while the matter is adjourned till 11th of March for hearing of pending application. Now, gentlemen, has the law been turned on its head since the CJN has appeared before the CCT, suspended CJN rather, has appeared before the CCT, therefore validating the system that he opposed to trying him? Abajide.
I think that it is good for our jurisprudence. It's good for our war against corruption that this has happened. I want to see a Nigeria where no one is above the law, where the laws are made for everyone and not just for the downtrodden. What we need is rule of law and not law of rulers. So a situation in which this is actually the culmination of moves to actually truncate the trial. You know, 3 times they were supposed to be brought before the CCT, and his trial was stalled. But at last, I think the CJN and his advisors have seen the futility of trying their best to not answer these charges. It doesn't mean he could actually face trial and be discharged and acquitted. We've seen that. Ladoja, I've always said it that when it comes to corruption trial in Nigeria, if they say someone is a liar, I mean is a thief, let him go through his trial. Let him convince the judge that he's not a thief. Ladoja went through trial for years, but he's been discharged and acquitted. It's not everyone that is taken before a judge that gets convicted. So maybe we could even be discharged. I don't know, I'm not the judge. But we've seen judges brought before this same CCT judge, Umar, and they were discharged. Justice Unguta and the rest of them, Ukoro. So let him face trial. That is what he should have done a long time ago. He should have stepped aside the moment this matter came up. And we suggested to him, but some people thought that they could use all kind of judicial tricks to ensure that he does not have his day in court. But you see, after all those tricks failed, they've told him, and this bench warrant for his arrest came. The old man was not going to sit on his butt and be embarrassed. So he decided that, look,
let me appear.
Now that bench, that warrant has been revoked on the condition that every time that he has to be in court, he will show up. So I wish him good luck as he faces trial.
Let's look at the seeming handwriting on the wall before his appearance. You know, the NJC had appealed to the federal government to allow the NBA rather had appealed to the federal government to allow the NJC to decide his fate. And also the Senate withdrew the application challenging the federal government's suspension of the CJN. So are these pointers to the fact that perhaps the suspended CJN may have been losing the battle a week to his appearance?
Well, I don't know whether I should use the word lose the battle. What people have been, those who are really concerned about the rule of law in the country have been fighting for, is for the common man on the street to see that nobody is above the law. I think he's even a winner today. I don't see it, as a kind of loss for him, because they asked him, are you guilty as charged? He said, no. So it's now, the onus is on him to defend, to be able to prove to the tribunal his innocence. So it's not, there is, to me, as we hear now, there is no winner or loser. The most important thing is the law itself. If there is a winner, it is the law of the land. that anybody, no matter how highly placed, can be brought to justice. Being brought to justice does not mean being found guilty.
Absolutely.
So when you have this, now you are a very powerful law officer yourself. You know the laws. You know the right way to be able to defend yourself. Now do it. Let the world see. And then if you have the opportunity, get freed. But all those, I mean, what we were trying to do before this time, to me, were just unnecessary for the good of what we call the rule of law. If there are undertones, it's immaterial. What is important is that there are laws of the land and nobody should be placed above that. If you are a citizen of Nigeria, even the president, despite immunity, can still be charged to court. Somebody can represent you based on certain things, but maybe you will not be answerable to that until maybe you leave the port. You are still accountable to the laws of the land. So the Senate president was there. He was at the CCT. And he also got there. He had his day in court. Eventually, discharged. He went to the Supreme Court. He got discharged. So the prayer of the Chief Justice to say, okay, let me also defend myself and get freed eventually. But one thing is certain, the rule of law has been served today. I think that's the best way to look at it.
About the undertones being immaterial is debatable, but let's look at another side to it. You know, when this news broke, a senior advocate of Nigeria, Babajide, had said, and it reminds me of what you said earlier on, that lawyers never agree on anything. So a senior advocate of Nigeria had said that, look, at the time of the persecution, quote and unquote, of judges, 2 years back, if members of the bar and the bench had been united, what is happening today would not have been happening, or not been happening in the same wavelength. Do you agree, Babajide?
I don't know the sort of unity that person. Unity in favor
It's
of
a matter of
corruption.
Perhaps
What?
speaking in condemnation of the manner in which the judges in the country were being persecuted.
No, even if I remember that the NJC complained at that time, so I don't know what that person is saying. That one happened does not mean something bigger cannot happen. The truth is, if you infringe on the laws of our land, then you know what to expect. The law should not leave you behind. Everyone should be accountable to our laws, to our processes. So whether someone is the CGN or the lowest judicial officer in the country, as long as you've done what is not right, you should be able to defend yourself in court. You should be able to have your day in court, So we had arguments up and down, lawyers, big lawyers. A lot of the lawyers simply interpreted what happened as an affront or an attempt to clobber the judiciary. They did not look at, they were not prepared to look at the fact that this is an offense that somebody holding that position had committed. They continued, they refused to divorce Onnoghen from the position that he occupies. Onnoghen, the individual, is the one who committed a crime, who allegedly committed a crime. No, but he owned up in writing. So
well, let the court decide.
But he said he made the money legitimately.
He owned up in writing that he actually forgot.
An oversight.
Forgot. I know there's a section that says that if you own up in writing, then reference to the CCT.
It's going to be interesting.
May not be necessary.
Yeah.
But it is the CCT that can exercise that right to either go ahead,
Anyway, it's in court.
Nobody knows how the case will be resolved. The CCT can even say it does not have jurisdiction. The final analysis was that nobody knows how the case will be resolved. But it is the trial of the CJN should not be interpreted as a trial of the judiciary or the judiciary as a whole. No.
But that's the way the bar and the bench view it.
But it is wrong. A lot of them, because they were the same people saying that the matter should have been taken before the NJC. But the law does not say this kind of matter should be taken before the NJC because it is not a professional misconduct. It is only professional misconduct that can first be taken before the NJC. Criminal offenses will not be taken or should not be taken before the NJC. For example, I gave an illustration. I said, if a judge raped my wife, so I will first go and tell the NJC. That won't happen now. That judge will be reported to the police. The police will arrest him and bring him to justice. They won't go and tell NJC to come and handle a criminal matter. No, it's professional misconduct that NJC should be handling. But when this one happened, they said, oh, it has to be NJC. Well, there's no such provision. So, and that's why it's not as if lawyers don't know that pushing certain positions are wrong. It is just a matter of interest. This is an assault against all of us, against all lawyers. So let us stay on this position. I've seen lawyers who, in the course of this controversy, took 3 different positions. When they listen, and then they think, it's like this person has made a little sense. They move to take another position. And then later again, they take the third position. Go and read. When we leave this, I will give you the names of some lawyers. Go and read what they first said when this thing broke. Go and read what they said the second time. Go and read what they said the third time. So lawyers will say they will never agree on these matters. I think lawyers genuinely, think that there's an attempt to disgrace the judiciary by the fact that this man has been put on trial. And because of that, a preponderance of Nigerian lawyers are not happy with what has happened, and they are not happy with the government over this matter. So this is the thing, but the law should take its course.
We'll talk about precedent. Yes, you were talking about undertones earlier on, and some would say the federal government has achieved its aim by getting the suspended CJN out of the way. So how would this...
when I said undertone, it's both ways. Those who are for the CJN may have their own ulterior motives. Like we were talking about lawyers who felt, insulted by the way the man was handled and overlooking the aspect of the rule of law. Maybe they base it on sentiment, the spur of the moment reaction to, why would this kind of thing be done to the highest law officer on the land? It's a part of ulterior motive. There may also be, from the other end, those who believe that maybe by getting this man out of the way, but those are just speculations. The most important thing about this is that there is a law in the country. If anybody is charged, he's still presumed innocent until proven guilty. So let him have his day in court.
It's still the CJN of our country.
As far as I'm concerned,
suspended.
Yes, there should be no sentiment.
I'm seeing some people calling him former CJN. No, it's still the CJN.
It's suspended.
Yeah, that's the fact. That's the fact.
All right, gentlemen, I want to thank you. I thank you very much for your contributions on the program.
We'll see you after the election.
Well, we'll all be here tomorrow. Yes. Yeah. And that's a good way to wrap it up. I hope that Nigerians will conduct themselves in the most appropriate manner tomorrow. Remember, the eyes of the world are on us, and our elections, the way they go tomorrow, will be a reflection of the character of Nigeria as a whole. So vote, don't fight. That's all on Journalist Hangout. Join us next week for another edition of the program. You can also watch Journalist Hangout on other platforms showing on the screen and on YouTube at youtube.com/TBC News Nigeria. Our feedback channel is Journalist Hangout at tvcnews.tv. Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Samuel Wenimo. God bless Nigeria.